You're listening to the Limitless Broadcasting Network.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand? It's showtime.
Hello guys, welcome back to You Can't Kill the Boogeyman podcast, live from Spooky Empire, Orlando, last day of the convention, and I'm joined with a special guest. Who do I have?
Hi, you have Derik Cavignano, author of The Art of Dying.
The Art of Dying. So you're an author?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. How did you get into being an author? If you need to scoot that forward, you can, a little bit.
Sure.
It's up to you.
Yeah, so I started writing. I actually wrote my first novel when I was 15 years old.
Really? That's that's pretty challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a fantasy ripoff of The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub, so it'll probably never see the light of day, but it was just something I started just stumbling on, writing a few sentences because I was bored on my computer program. And,
right.
Then I just kept asking myself questions like, well, why did this happen? And then, 450 pages later, I had a book. And then I was like, hey, wow, I could do this. So, yeah, that's how I got started in this.
So that's your first book that wasn't published.
Yes.
So is this your only book that's published now? No,
I have 3, and I just finished the 4th, and I'm editing the 4th now, so that'll probably be out in a few months.
Okay, so where does this fall this is the same story, but over 3 books?
Yeah, so this one actually, the one I wrote before this was called The Righteous and the Wicked, and it was more of a sci-fi suspense thriller.
Okay.
And the lead character of that was sort of like a lonely young widower who he stumbles upon like a secret cult, secret society of immortals, and
like the Highlander.
But more from the perspective of it was a scientist who discovered a cure for aging and disease.
Okay.
And he's sort of like this really everything for the greater good type of thing. And his idea is like, I want to preserve the world for our generations, but like everyone else is ruining it.
Okay.
Right? So anyway, the lead character of that, his brother is a Boston police detective who ended up being much larger than life. So I'm like, oh, that guy needs his own book. So that's how this book came about.
Okay.
And so this book, The Art of Dying, is it's about a serial killer who essentially he's an artist. He also has a medical, some medical knowledge, and his art, so his victims are people who have wronged him over time.
Okay.
Like his elementary school bully, other things like that. And so his deal is that he hangs them in his gallery on the wall, and he makes living works of art out of them.
Okay.
Sometimes they end up missing a limb or 2.
Okay.
He kind of makes them into something else, transforming them into his vision of what their true, kind of what their true being is. So one guy's a tarantula.
Wow. Okay.
In any event, the first guy who dies in the book is a mob foot soldier for the Irish mob.
Okay.
And so this is set in Boston, and so kind of like a warring Irish-Italian mob faction.
Uh-huh.
So the Irish mob thinks that the Italian mafia killed their guy.
Okay.
And so it sparks this escalating mob war. Meanwhile, it's really the serial killer at work, and so as the detective starts unraveling this, he's navigating this mob war while also trying to solve a serial killer case.
That sounds super cool.
It's very like Seven meets The Departed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Have you ever tried to sell this for like a screenplay?
Yes. I am actually working with the production company right now with Voyage Media. So I signed a shopping agreement with them.
Okay.
So we packaged it up. They think it would be best as an 8-episode like web series or a TV series.
Yeah, a TV series. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, so we are right now shopping it around. Haven't sold it yet, but we've done like a podcast, like a podcast episode of the pilot script. So, but yeah, we're getting some traction on it. There's people asking for it and reading it and reviewing it. But it's it's indie published, but it's gotten some attention. It's won a bunch of awards, so I'm pretty proud of it.
Okay. What separates you from other writers? Why should people go to your stuff and read your stuff?
I think, my stories tend to be character-driven, really character-driven stories, and I hate the types of book, and they're fast-paced. It's usually pretty short chapters that are like, page turners. So people tend to keep, wanting to read more.
Okay.
And I'd say, the other thing too is just like I try to keep it real, grounded in reality, and just kind of human emotion, and let that drive the story.
Yeah.
And being I hate reading books when you're like, that could never happen.
Right.
So everything is like from the police procedure to the places they go to, what the autopsy technician would be looking at and doing. I try to make that all, as realistic as possible.
No, that makes sense. Who was your inspiration as a writer? Like, why horror? What inspired you to be a horror writer?
Yeah, good question. I would say Stephen King really was the first person who started. My sister got me introduced to Stephen King. I was like a reluctant reader. I didn't want to read anything.
Okay.
And then I was 15, and that's when I mentioned I read The Talisman for the first time. I was like, wow, this is like fantastic. So then I read all of his stuff that was out there, and then I went on to Peter Straub and, Clive Barker and like others like that. So that's kind of how it all kind of came together for me.
Okay. Where are you based out of?
I live in Tampa now, but I grew up, I spent the first 30 years of my life in Boston.
Wow, Boston?
Yeah.
So how did that transition happen?
My wife had family down here, and she was sick of the winters, and so we always talked about, not staying in Boston forever. So we moved down here about 17 years ago. You
got a lot of haunted attractions in Boston.
There are, yeah. There's some pretty cool cemeteries. And so this book's set in Boston, and then the follow-up book to this will be set in Salem. It'll be more of an occult crime thriller.
Okay.
Where, the captain that this detective works for, his niece goes missing in Salem.
Okay.
And so he's like, I want my best guy on this.
Yeah.
So they end up getting pulled into this missing persons case that operating where there's a demonic cult operating at the fringes of Salem's witchcraft underground.
Wow. I'm already sold. Do you have any audiobooks?
I do, yeah. So The Art of Dying is available on audio. And then I have a pure horror story standalone work called Colony of the Lost, which is more like my version of Roanoke Island disappearance, but happening in modern day Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires.
Yes, let's repeat. Tell me about that.
Okay, so that one is, so imagine the woods of the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. 300 years ago, a settlement vanishes kind of the same way Roanoke Island does.
Okay.
People gone, etc. 300 years later, in the modern day, the children of the town start disappearing one by one. And then, so the ancient evil has now returned.
Right, yeah.
And for various reasons, there's only a few people who can kind of see the Puritan ghost who's warning them about what's happening.
Yeah.
The Puritan ghost being the victim of one of the earliest, disappearance. And so it really teams up a trio of unlikely heroes who's sort of like an alcoholic school teacher who just lost his job because he's in that spiral.
You're right.
Kind of like a wisecracking new kid in town, this 15-year-old teenager named Tim,
yeah.
And then a 9-year-old girl who's got imaginary friends.
Okay.
And so somehow they have to kind of come together as strangers and help, unleash this evil from the town.
Have you ever seen Stephen King's The Storm of the Century?
Yes, that is the one. That's with like Linoge and
yes, is that where you got the kind of the premise of this?
It's not. But there are some similarities.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that one was done. Like this one, I originally did Calling of the Lost in 1997, and then like being kind of independent, at that time, I kind of wrote it, rewrote it, sat on it for a while, and then I released it like in a limited fashion. Then I like finally re-released it in 2015.
How does it, when you write a novel, how long does it usually take you to write it?
The Art of Dying took me 4 years. My new one took 4 years. I've got my day job. I get like a corporate job that's pretty demanding, and then I've got like, you know, kids, school-age kids at home. So it's hard to find the time. But if I dedicated myself to it, I could probably do it in a year if I ignored everything. Okay. But yeah, it's been taking me about 4 years. Okay. Where can people find your work at? Like if they wanted to buy the audiobook or wanted to buy the cover hard copy, where can people find it? So all of the books are available online. So Amazon, you go to Amazon.com, you type in my last name, which is Cavignano, Cavignano.
You Italian?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Irish-Italian, so that was also why the Irish-Italian Mob War was
absolutely
resonated with me. But yeah, so it's available through any bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, etc., online. But Amazon's where I do most of my sales.
Let me ask you, why Amazon? You're not the only author I've had on the show, and they're like, oh, Amazon. Why Amazon?
Yeah. You know, being like a kind of an independent author, it's like they're the ones who've catered most to us. Okay. Right? Like I know they've shut down bookstores and like there's bad blood there, but I can't tell you how many independent bookstores I've gone to over or independent stores or Barnes & Noble. Like it's hard. You get people like, thanks but no thanks, and like you get a little bit of the cold shoulder. So
you've tried to get your books in small stores and they don't let that happen?
In a number of them, yes. I've had more luck recently. There's a place, Books at Parks Place in St. Pete, who's been really great to us, and I think Barnes & Noble is starting to change their model up a little bit and giving more power to the individual manager to like have a local author section. But I think in the past it was all more corporate, and people were like, I'd like to help you, but I can't. Right. You know, so. But with Amazon, you can fully control everything. Okay. And you know, they make it easy for you. Like that's kind of their deal, and so it helps. And you can do free promotions on Amazon. Like I give away a lot of my ebooks for free to help build up. Yeah. You know, it gets you to #1 in horror on their algorithm. People see it, then they're like, oh, I'm on Kindle Unlimited, I pay a subscription, I'll read that, and then you get paid per page. And so
that was my next this is kind of a personal question, but do you make good money off of Amazon?
No. Okay. I mean, I would say it's not as good as it used to be, but you know, at least for me, I'm acknowledging that I'm trying to get my name out there, right? And then, you know, once you get to a certain bandwidth, then you can start maybe commanding more. But I've had like over 175,000 downloads of my books.
That's
like,
great.
Through just like the promotions on Amazon. So it hasn't like translated into a big windfall yet, but you know, it's helped to get me some notice from other places and outlets and things like that. So,
well, thank you for answering that question. That was a bit personal, but I appreciate it.
I don't mind. So,
yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think this has been great. I welcome you up.
What's your social media? Where can people find you at?
Okay, so social media, I think I'm on, you know, I have a Facebook page, Derik Cavignano, Facebook. It'll just pop up if you type that in. And then the same thing on Instagram and Twitter. I use my full name.
Okay. Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you for being a part of this show, and we're looking forward to it. I'm all in on your books, so I'm going to be looking for them.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm joined with, who am I joined with?
I am Michael Thomas, horror and occult author. I'm here set up at Spooky Empire selling books and having an absolute blast. I just released a new book called A Thin Veil of the Cosmos. You can refer to me as Michael, though. It is my real name.
Okay, Michael.
I picked my author name. There's a guy named Michael Thomas that exists in the football world. I don't follow sports. You got to forgive me.
I don't follow sports either, so I don't hold that against you.
There's no way I could beat that algorithm of a football player in the NFL. His name is Michael Thomas. So I just threw a Thomas in the front, but everybody calls me Michael. So thank you. Thank you, Robert, for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for wanting to come on the show. So let's back up. You say you're an author.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been an author?
Well, we're in a fortunate world where people don't need to send their stories to get rejected by
publishers.
By publishers. So you could publish on your own.
Right.
And there's many, many, many different levels of that. There's people who just put out a Kindle book and they call themselves an author, and that works and that's true. Or you could put all into it as hard as possible and buy ads and get in algorithms and do the impressions and things that you're supposed to do in the marketing world. But I do have physical copies of my books.
And I'm assuming you're a latter of the two.
Yeah, I try to. I mean, years and years and years ago, I used to be in a hardcore band, and we were indie. We weren't signed at all, but we pushed as hard as possible to make your band sound the best. And you can do that. If you're very DIY, there's different levels of DIY, and DIY could be bare bones, like it looks DIY and feels it. It's kind of like if somebody, you have these shirts here, these look beautiful, and
we appreciate
Jason,
that.
My friend Jason said that your shirts are awesome. That's how you started your friendship.
Yeah,
and you guys do a good job with that. Or there's guys who could also make their shirts and they can sell them outside a concert on a screen printer in their basement.
Right.
And they're both DIY, but there's your
different levels.
Your different levels. So yeah, I would like to think that would be a higher level of DIY as an independent.
No, absolutely. I have a book out. It's through iUniversity. It's called Be Still and Know, Healing from Within.
Okay.
So I know the kind of the publishing world a little bit.
Right.
I'm mostly into the production side of things. We have the podcast network. We're producing content for our own streaming platform. So my next question is, how did you get into the horror?
Well, I've always been a horror nut, and I'm sure you're the same. But when you see everything, when you see all your slashers and and I was on a panel last night and we were talking about the films that everybody talks about in horror, deserve to be talked about. Everybody knows Halloween, everybody knows Friday the 13th, everybody knows. And if you're an 80s kid, you know the franchises. But there's this whole undercurrent of horror that exists, that sometimes it gets forgotten or starts to resurface again when you just get these remasterings of old classics or stuff that kind of fell by the wayside back in the 70s because maybe they had a limited release or there was a smaller production company.
Right.
So I really got into smaller horror and independent stuff, a lot of foreign stuff, French stuff, 70s movies. And I got so into it, I'm like, I think I could come up with a couple of these stories. I don't need to come out with the big blockbuster. I'm okay with being a 9-to-5 guy, coming out with some really cool, small, independent stories that are near and dear to my heart, that at the same time I hide some of myself in these characters, and that becomes therapeutic at a point, which is fun to say that writing horror can be therapeutic.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is therapeutic. Yeah. So who were the authors that inspired you to do what you do today?
You could always say King because he's deserved for the credit that I mean, we all know King. You go to Barnes & Noble, your horror section, if it's a smaller horror section, 85% of it's King, and then they have like a little section for like other horror authors. But, right. But I don't know, honestly, who I would be today if I never watched Stand By Me. Stand By Me hit me so hard as a kid. So when I sell this book, The Evil Within the House, people are like, what is this like? I was like, it's like the X-Files meets Stand By Me.
So yeah.
And so I have that connection with and Stranger Things taps into that as well. You have that like the youth and it's fun and it's 80s and you're talking about toys and you're talking about girls, but there's monsters somewhere in there too. There's something about, it's like the movie Monster Squad has that
Oh my goodness. Do you love Monster Squad?
We just watched it the other night. I absolutely love it. It's a beautiful movie.
So underrated.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to go on a tangent now.
And that didn't do well when it came out. This is the crazy thing about that.
So you know that the Monster Squad was a first-time director, right?
Yeah.
And it flopped at the box office. That's why he didn't get a sequel.
It's sad.
And
it's
now
a beautiful movie.
It has such a cult following that people are like, oh, I have my own like art coming out for shirts for the Monster Squad. I wanted to bring it to this con, but I had 2 weeks in between this con and my last con. And I was like, I couldn't do it. So then I'll have that out later.
Is it going to be Kick 'em in the Nards? Is it going to be Nards related?
One of them will. You have to have that when you're talking about Monster Squad. Kick 'em in the Nards. Kick 'em in the Nards. Wolfman has Nards.
It's beautiful.
But I could talk to you all day about Monster Squad, but I really want to talk to you about your books.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But before we do that, one of my favorite things in Monster Squad is when they all do the pile on with their hands. And it's Frankenstein's monster's hand and then the dog's paw. That's...
Yes.
You can't get more 80s than that. If it's Frankenstein's monster hanging out in the clubhouse with the kids and the dog's paw goes on top.
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful moment.
Don't you think Rhodey is like, how does the dog even get up here? and you kind of wonder that, like, how does the dog get up there? Do you just carry it or, you know?
There's another one of my favorite things. There's been a Horus shoots the Gillman. I'm a Gillman fan. I have a Gillman tattoo.
That's awesome.
But all the other monsters are so hard to kill, well, except for the mummy. The mummy gets killed by just the bow and arrow. But when Gillman gets killed, I'm like, he's way more tougher than that. He would just cut through the police just like Dracula did. But Horus was a powerful character too.
My name is Horus.
It's wonderful.
So no, absolutely, that is one of the best lines.
Oh my God, yeah, and he deserved it because he got picked on so hard in the beginning.
Yes.
And then I think it's Wayne from the Wonder Years. I can't remember the
Yes.
character's
Can you
name.
believe that?
Yes.
Yes. You look at him and he's like, oh, it's the guy from the Wonder Years being an asshole.
He's just playing Wayne from the Wonder Years.
Yeah, basically,
like he's playing that punchable face character.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Another great scene is that it's your last chance for pie.
Yeah.
The scary German guy.
Yes. Yeah,
that is the best.
They're building it up like it's going to be like a Burbs moment.
Yes.
You're like, he's going to be a villain. And
Right.
The sweetest guy.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, I want to be in your club. I want to help you out. And so, yeah.
It's awesome. I related with the leather coat kid. I can't remember.
Rudy.
Rudy.
I was going to ask
Rudy
you
so much.
Who is your favorite character in the Monster Squad?
Getting to, I don't know who I would be as a person if I didn't have these films. And this is an interesting thing about films.
They brand you.
Yes.
They mold you.
As a young age.
Absolutely.
I kind of feel bad for younger generations because we had Karate Kid when we were younger.
Right.
And it had 3 movies, I think. I think they went to Karate Kid 3.
Yeah.
But then the Cobra Kai came out, and I didn't watch it. I heard it was great. But there's like 5 seasons of that.
Yeah.
But I have a Taxi Driver tattoo of a film that I saw in 1989. I'm an old fart, but I saw it in 1989. And I have that tattoo of a movie that's maybe an hour and 40 minutes long, and that branded my life. But kids now have so much to watch. They're kind of like, I don't know, should I watch this 5-series show with 10 episodes? And they binge it, and I don't know if the lines are as quotable as Monster Squad or as Are You Talking to Me with Taxi Driver? I think there's an oversaturation.
They're not iconic.
Yeah.
I mean, media is so abundant nowadays. I agree with you. It's just they have over 500 stations.
Yeah.
You and I growing up, we had to be in front of our TV. We had to TiVo it.
Yes.
I mean, we couldn't get around all that. We had taped it on an actual VHS tape.
Yes.
And kids don't know. I mean, they pull out their phones and stream everything.
Right.
It has to be accessible. It has to be now.
Like a movie like Apocalypse Now, like on their phone. Like they watch like these wide anamorphic things on this small screen.
Christopher Nolan hates that. He's like, the internet is the death to filmmaking. He's like, everybody should be in the theater. That's why IMAX sponsored him. That's why IMAX brand sponsored his brand, because they do all the anamorphic stuff. They shoot everything bigger, and they want you to have that cinematic experience.
And you remember the film more.
Yeah.
And there's like,
have you seen Oppenheimer?
I haven't.
Oh my goodness, you need to. It's 3 hours long, but you don't feel like you're in the theater for 3 hours.
See it. This past year, I edited my second book, A Thin Veil of the Cosmos. It took me months to edit it, and I kind of turned into a hermit, a miser, an old curmudgeon. I was just editing so much.
Right.
I didn't know there was things happening in the world I was unaware of. And my wife's
Right.
like, do you want to binge watch this show? I'm like, yes, it sounds good. And then I would come out of there, and she was like, oh, I just finished it. I'm like, but a week would have went by, and my Macintosh said I was editing 6 hours a night.
Wow.
It said, warning, your computer usage is at this level. I was like, oh my God, that's bad. I work a 9 to 5 too. So
I'm the same way. When I'm working on a project, like I'm working on a strike project, so I went to LA and filmed it for our streaming network. I'm shooting original content. Okay. So I'm trying to get this out before the actual strike actually ends.
Wow. Okay.
So we were just at Spokala and then Tampa, and then after we left there, I've been editing that and shooting that and molding it into the masterpiece it's going to be.
That's awesome.
But then we came here, so I totally get you. And Sammy knows that. Like when I get on a project, it's hard to tear me away.
It's hard, and it's good when that obsessive button hits, because as soon as I got done editing, you're already wired to work on something else, and I had nothing else to work on. So, so I was like, I have piles of books that I haven't read and piles of movies I still buy physical media. I have piles of DVDs. I'm like, I gotta get into these, and I haven't given myself time. Sorry if I clapped on the podcast.
No, it's fine.
That's my hand tick thing.
No, it's okay.
But now I get to dig into those things I've been putting off all year long. I get to watch Oppenheimer and watch shows. I heard there's a new...
Definitely recommend Oppenheimer.
There's a new show people are talking about it on Netflix that's put out by the guy who did the vampire one. What the H is it? Is it he did The Haunting of Hill House? What show am I talking about?
I don't. What's the new show on Netflix that everybody's talking about?
There's a new horror series on Netflix, and I would recommend it to watch it. And people who are listening right now are yelling at me.
I know.
They're like, this guy's dumb. I'm never going to read his book.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of that either. So if you know what it is, put it in the comments below.
Put it in the comments below. I apologize, everybody.
It's
okay.
That
shows how much of a cocoon I've been in.
It's okay.
With writing and editing.
So let's get back to your books.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm the host. I gotta get it back. So let's talk about your first book,
Sure.
The Evil Within the House.
The Evil Within the House. I have this theory, and it goes to I believe that people are more terrifying and scary than the monsters. So there's two boys. It starts off lose their friend. And they want to speak to him through a Ouija board, and they go and they do a seance.
Let me pause for you. I lost my father 20 years ago.
Okay.
And so the week after he died, I did the same thing. I went to Target and bought a Ouija board.
Really?
And I went into his bedroom, his bathroom and everything, lit candles and everything, and I tried to use a Ouija board to contact him.
Yeah.
And it did not work.
Right.
And I was so pissed.
Right.
I boxed it back up and took it back to Target. And I was like, you sold me a defective product.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
I was 23.
Wow.
But my dad was just hit by a drunk driver.
Oh, jeez.
And so I'll tell you the story. My dad was hit by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
It killed him, my dad's girlfriend, and another guy in the accident.
Wow.
So the guy killed 3 people. And it was like a week after his funeral, and I was super pissed and angry, and I just wanted to talk to him.
Right.
And it didn't work.
Right.
And I took it back to Target and yelled at them, and I was like, this is defective.
Right.
Target literally sent me a $50 gift card.
Really?
And they were like, we're sorry we sold you a product that didn't work. But I think after I laid out everything that was going on, I think the girl made that happen. And I was so apologetic. I was like, I'm so sorry.
Grief does that, and that's okay. If you're angry, some people go right to anger. Some people go right to questioning with grief. And this.
So that's what. So get back to your book.
Yeah,
so I relate to that.
It's funny. Oh, I'm holding this up. It does relate with grief and grieving. I think you can make a universe of monsters. You can make a universe of spaceships. You can make that, but you got to have a connection with your characters.
Yeah.
So Grieving Boys in the 1980s. It's set in the 80s. To me, that's a connection. That's me.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're kind of just older, grayer versions of our childlike selves. So
right.
We still like, and especially we're spoiled now when we see resurgences of Voltron or He-Man or Thundercats. We're like, I lived for this stuff when I was a kid, and then younger kids get into it. It's cool, but you're kind of like, it brings the kid out of you. So when I wrote this, I was like, Stand By Me meets the X-Files, as in these boys communicate to their friend, or they think they're communicating with their friend through this Ouija board. And
it turns out to be a demon, doesn't it?
Well, I go to the cosmic level. So I always say I am coming of age cosmic horror. But I throw this whole other thing, and I'll throw the story into it because it is emotional for anyone here. The boys end up going into this haunted house to get this pendant because one of them believes that this pendant that he has, this magical pendant, can cure cancer. This is what he had heard with this occult item. And if it cures cancer, his grandmother would be healed of this cancer. And I had lost my uncle to cancer years ago.
I apologize.
And if she gets healed, then he's not going to get kicked out of his house. He'll be able to stay with his grandma. Or if she dies, then he's going to be homeless. Or he's going to go live with his deadbeat dad. So I wrote the story. And about 2 years ago, I had this sitting on the counter. And my 81-year-old friend came over to visit my wife and myself in our new house. And my wife says, hey, Ed, Michael wrote this book over here, and I only had one. I ordered one on Amazon. I think it was a proofer, and I was taking pictures, putting it on Instagram. I was all excited to have my own physical copy. And he stole it. He took it. Ed grabs it. And he goes, good, I have something to read. He goes, sit down. I got something to tell you. And then he sits down and tells me that he has cancer, and he's going through chemo. And I was like, Ed, I'm so sorry. He goes, I'm an old man. I'm 81 years old. He goes, I hope they don't operate on me. He goes, I hope it goes quick. 2 years pass, and then I'm writing this book. And I'm still visiting.
What's your other book?
The second book is called A Thin Veil of the Cosmos.
Okay.
Plot twist, this is dedicated to him. He had just passed.
Okay.
And it's very beautiful. And my mother-in-law read that part, and she texted me immediately. She's like, I cried at the intro that you dedicated to that man. She was like, for being a horror writer, she's like, you really tapped into this emotional thing. And I was like, it's the guy, I thought I was going to lose the guy, and here he read it, and I wanted to go visit him. He goes, you tell those boys that when they're done using that pendant that I need to borrow it too. I'm like, man, it was like a punch in the stomach, because he was almost making comedy out of some sort of fictitious world and a fake occult object that I made.
Right.
And he's like applying it to his life as an 81-year-old guy. It's beautiful, though. It's very beautiful.
Did you kind of get that inspiration from Monster Squad, the amulet, when they're like, "Oh, we got to go home in limbo"?
No, but I
can see the connection there.
It probably is in my brain somewhere.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, I have both these books tied to some occult guy from the 1800s. And one item ends up in this book, The Evil in the House, where it's the pendant, and another item is for the second book, is A Thin Veil of the Cosmos, where he writes this book about channeling your psychic energy or your ambiance or your chi, and through the universe, and be able to communicate with intelligent life. And the lead girl in here is a goth girl, and it's her versus the religious town, and she gets abducted by aliens.
Oh wow!
Forgets everything, and they drop her off in the middle of a town baseball game. And she gets chased by a UFO cult. She gets a tinfoil hat man comes after her.
Wow.
The FBI are questioning if she's
the Men in Black.
Saying yes, exactly. So this one's near and dear to my heart as well. But the first one, and I could say both of these because I don't think my family will listen to, not that it's your podcast, they won't listen to something that I will be on. But the first one is a forgiveness letter to my biological father for not being around. So at the very, very end, when you get to it, you're kind of like, damn, that's supposed to be horror and science fiction.
Right.
And it's really just some old horror guy writing about how he's able to forgive and let go.
I gotcha.
Of just bitterness. And the same thing is with this.
Do you have any audiobooks? I know people are going to ask me.
I don't.
Are you going to be doing that?
I should. There's a way to do it that's easy for indie people, and I have not knocked on those doors yet. But
well, I definitely think you should do that.
I should.
People are going to be asking me where you can get your audiobooks. Where can people find these when they want to buy this?
You can go to, I go through Amazon. You can go on there now. If you actually are listening today, you can go on there now, and you can get A Thin Veil of the Cosmos for free. It's for free on Kindle today. I'm running a promotion. Yesterday I did one for The Evil Within the House. I'm so happy that it actually did very, very, very well. But Amazon, you can find me on Instagram at Delamorte Delagore, which is taken from the Italian horror film Delamorte Delamore.
Okay.
I just put gore in there.
Okay.
You can just look up Michael Thomas, The Evil Within the House on Google, and it will take you to everything, or you can find me on thomasmichaelthomas.com as well.
Awesome.
So I really appreciate it.
Anything else you want to add?
I think the world would be a better place if people are just nicer to each other. That's probably why I want to close out everything, because the world is a sick and crazy place, and despite being a horror author, I think if you smile at strangers and give head nods to people and pet dogs and cats, we probably could have a better place to live in. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is You Can't Kill the Boogeyman podcast. Again, I'm your host. Sammy will be on later in the episode, but we really appreciate it.
Thank you,
we'll
Robert.
definitely have you back on.
Please.
You've been a great guest. I know this is kind of a quick interview, but I could see us going deeper.
Hell yeah.
So this kind of just scratches the surface. So
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this great setup.
Who do we have with us?
Hi, my name is Stephanie E. Jensen, and I'm an author.
Okay. What book do you have?
So right now I have The Howling of the Dead. This is my paranormal book. It's about a couple, they inherit a cabin, and a lot of creepy stuff happens in this cabin. Trigger warning, but one of my main characters inherits it from his aunt who unalived herself. So there are themes of that, but my main character, Brayden, suffers from sleep paralysis, so there's a lot of those themes in the book because I've also had some like creepy sleep paralysis things, and there's some like folk-inspired creatures that I came up with. There's a lot of like biblical, like demon stuff, deals with a religion, so it's like a bunch of creepy stuff in this book, but I mainly also write serial killers. I would bring my book Dissecting House, but it's sold out, so that one is about a female serial killer.
Okay, I gotcha. So let's back up for a second.
Absolutely.
What got you into horror? Why did you want to become a horror author?
So I started reading Goosebumps at a young age, and then that eventually spiraled me into reading Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, some of the big main horror authors, historic horror authors, and then just browsing Barnes & Noble when I was a teenager, I discovered Laurel K. Hamilton.
Okay.
After reading her books, I realized that women can also write very brutal scenes and sex scenes just as well as men could.
Okay.
So that helped to inspire me as well. And this book, The Howling of the Dead, is not really extreme horror. There are some more brutal scenes, but my book, Dissecting House, is very much extreme horror. It's like I go, level 10 with like the blood and the gore and all that. So that genre, I watched Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses at way too young of an age. And
is that what inspired you for that?
No. So Dissecting House, it's about a female serial killer, and so with that book, her victims are men, and
okay.
I wrote this book just to, for my male readers to have an understanding. This is what happens when women, we go on a date with you, we go into your car, your house, we're always thinking in the back of our mind, what could you do to us? And some of my male readers told me I changed their life. They're like, I never thought a woman could torture and murder me.
Apparently, yeah. I'm naturally paranoid, and now I'm always like, you could probably do something for me, so I'm not going to put myself in that position. But you could get in my car if you wanted to. But we're not going to your place. So that's the difference.
Yeah, there you go.
So have you always wanted to be an author?
Yes. I also started writing books at a young age. I was about 7 years old. Well, let me backtrack, actually. I was always an avid reader ever since I could learn how to read. I always had a book in my hand. And then, starting at 7 years old, we were assigned to write a little story, and our teacher made a cute little book for us and everything. And my story was not horror. It was about a turtle who had no friends.
Okay.
Clearly, I, escalated a little far past writing about turtles.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, and ever since then, I've always been a writer. I've never stopped.
So why should people buy your books? What separates you in the world?
I would, as much as I love the horror genre, I do think a lot of these tropes are regurgitated. I do hope I offer something new and fresh, because I'm largely inspired by real life. I think a lot of authors are inspired by what they've read or what they've seen in movies and on TV, and I'm very much inspired by real life.
Okay.
So, even some of my more fantasy elements, like, Howling of the Dead, still deals with some real life problems such as unaliving oneself and everything, mental health, religion, all of that.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Where can people buy your books at?
So, I gave you a business card. My Amazon author page is the best place where you can buy my business card. I mean, where you can buy my books, I apologize. My social media, my author website is infernalhorror.com. You can't buy my books there, but you'll see, book announcements, stuff like that, when I'll be at places here like Spooky. And all my Instagram, Twitter, all of that, the handle is Infernal Horror. I know my Twitter's Infernal Horror 3. I think my Instagram is infernal_horror, and then my personal page is Stephanie Infernal on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, so Amazon, just go to Amazon.com, search either my author name, Stephanie E. Jensen, or any of my book titles, and you'll find my books.
So Amazon is the best place to find you.
Yes, I'm also on Godless too, if you want to buy a digital copy as well.
Is any of your books in actual physical bookstores?
Yes. Oh no, a physical bookstore, I apologize. No, it's not.
No?
No.
Is that the next step? Is that the next goal?
I'm trying for that.
Are you doing book signings or anything like that? Is that the next step too?
So I am trying to get a couple things planned for the end of the year and next year. For anybody who's based in the Tampa area of Florida, that's where I'm based. So You might see me at like a couple breweries every now and again, but I do try to do as many of these conventions as much as possible. I'm hoping to do Spookala next year, hoping to do Spooky Empire again. I'm still getting my schedule next year planned, so follow me on social media and you'll be updated on all of that.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely check her out. Go pick up a book. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for interviewing me.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, guys? We're back. It's You Can't Kill the Boogeyman podcast with your host. I'm Robbie, and I'm joined with...
Jessica.
Jessica, how are you doing?
I am doing really well. How are you doing?
Very long weekend for us. We're at Spooky Empire. This is day 3. You've been here all weekend.
Yes, I can agree. It's definitely been a long weekend, and today I'm sad to see it end, but I'm also happy at the same time.
Okay, let's back up. Are you from Orlando, or are you from the area, surrounding area?
I live about 40 minutes away from Orlando.
Okay, so you guys drove in for the weekend.
Yes.
And got a hotel in the host hotel.
No, we've been driving back and forth every day, so.
Oh my God, that's determination right there.
Thank you.
We were going to do that for Spookala in Tampa, but we were like, we're vendors, we have all this equipment, we're just gonna get a room down there. So we did not end up doing that.
That makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to have to like pack everything up and bring it back all that way to have to set it up again in the morning.
Yeah. So who got you in the door? Like, why did you want to come to this event?
I love Halloween, and I have an Instagram, and a company called Teens Want to Know reached out, and if you remember what Teen Beat magazine is from like the 80s and 90s,
okay,
we are now the digital version of them, and
okay,
we as teenagers and young adults go around and we just get exposure for the brand and ourselves, and we can network, and
okay,
it's been a super awesome experience and opportunity to be working under them.
So what do they have? What kind of stuff do they have you do? Just go around to events like this?
My last event was actually a fashion show for like kids and teenagers, so I did that last, and then they like to send us to events like these because there's so many awesome people and so many people we can network with also. But we do fashion shows, we do parties, like in LA, one of my friends just did coverage of that giant Alice in Wonderland influencer party.
Okay.
So it's a lot of stuff like that.
So you would basically say you're more of an influencer?
Yes.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So have you done other events like this or other influencer events?
This has been the only Comic-Con that I've done so far, but we're looking to break more into these different cons to bring cosplay back to like the kids and show them that you can really be whatever you want to be and just not care about what anybody else thinks. Okay.
What do you guys also do? What else do you do? What for being an influencer? How do you become an influencer for the people that want to be influencers?
It takes a lot of determination and a lot of patience. There's a lot that goes into it, even though a lot of people think, oh, they're just sitting and they're on their phones all day, which is kind of correct, but there's a lot of work because you have to network yourself, you have to be very consistent in your posting, you have to figure out the different trends, what to wear, everything. It's a giant puzzle.
Okay.
But it's really a game of luck also.
Okay. Why did you want to become an influencer?
I've always loved being able to help motivate and inspire people to do whatever it is that they want to do in their life and show like you're beautiful, you're handsome, you can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it. And I think that's really the best thing because there's so many kids that look at social media too that
absolutely
can grow up with these influencers, and they are such a good example for the younger generation behind us.
Are you thinking about doing podcasting, starting your own podcast or anything like that?
I have definitely thought about it. I'm also breaking into the modeling and acting world as well now. So I think a podcast could be really fun, and I have been thinking about it. So
yesterday we met actually briefly, but you are going to be shooting a feature in Texas. Talk to me about that.
It is a indie movie film called The Last Battleship. It is produced by Steamhouse Entertainment, and I am playing a petty officer. And so it is a military movie, but picture the military in space. Okay. So all of the battleships that like the military uses down here in the water and stuff, will be up in space, and there's like a giant fight for them, and you have to get to one destination with the last battleship because there's only one left, and you have to get it to the safe spot.
Okay.
So me and a lot of my friends are actually in this movie together.
So how did the production company get a hold of you? How did you even get involved with this project?
One of my friends, Bella, is a part of the movie. She's one of the co-producers of the movie as well. And it was actually at her 16th birthday party, and the producer was there, and none of us knew he was going to be there. Bella didn't even know he was coming. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he saw me at the party, and he was like, hey, you want to break into this? I have an offer at a role. Maybe you're interested. And we talked about it for probably like half an hour to an hour, and I was like,
okay,
I think that sounds like something I'd want to do. So that's how that all got started, and I got cast in it.
So is it a big role? Like, are you co-starring this, or are you the lead?
I am not the lead, but it is definitely a bigger part because I'm part of the like medical team in the movie, and I am playing a doctor as well.
Okay.
So it's like petty officer / doctor also.
Okay. So is this? I'm sure you don't know this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is it going to be streamed, or is it for streaming, or is it for a festival?
It is for a festival first, but we're looking and hoping to put it into theaters if we can manage that, because we're also going to try to make this a trilogy with a prequel as well.
Wow, you guys got a big project in hand. So you're in this one, you might be casting all of them.
Yes, thankfully. And there's also a new horror film being drawn up right now by Steamhouse Entertainment, and they're looking to cast me in one of the roles as well.
Okay, so I'm assuming, do you have an agent now, or are you independent, or how does this work?
I am independent at the moment, but I am in talks with an agency right now, and I have orientation on November 4th where they're gonna give me the offer officially. Okay.
That's really good. That's exciting.
Thank you. It's definitely exciting because ever since I was like 8, this is what I wanted to do. So they said that to me, and my inner child screamed with joy.
I gotcha. So what separates you from other influencers? Why should people follow you?
Well, I really like to spread a positive base and show uniqueness, because I have a lot of different chronic illnesses actually, so I have had a lot of surgeries and I have a lot of scars on my body.
Okay.
So I like to show everybody, kids, teenagers, adults, the seniors, anything, that even if you have these problems and you might have scars, that doesn't take away from your beauty or anything about you. It just adds to it, because it adds like layers to the story. Okay. No, I gotcha. I like to build like confidence and everything else regarding that, and just be positive, and because the world just needs a little bit more kindness. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So, yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. Are you planning to do any other horror conventions this year? I don't think this year, but I'm hoping for a couple next year. Okay. What shows are you thinking about heading up? Definitely Spooky Empire again, and I'm thinking about Spookala, and there's also going to be a Spooky Empire in Charleston, South Carolina next year, actually. Really? I did not know that. Yes, I just found that out yesterday from one of the people that work here. Okay. And so I'm hoping that maybe I could do that one as well. What is your biggest platform you're most active on? Instagram, definitely. Okay. How many followers have you got? A little over 30,000. Oh, wow. You've been doing, how long have you been posting? How long have you been doing this regularly? About 2 years now. Okay. That's pretty impressive. Thank you. Okay. And what is your Instagram? Where can people find you at? It is at the, in all lowercase, THE_Jazz, JAZ, also in lowercase, and then official, and that is the name. Okay. So it's at the Jazz Official. Okay. Anything else you want to add? Not too much, but just remember, stay true to yourself, be unique, embrace everything about yourself, because you're only here once, so why spend it being miserable? Oh, no, that's absolutely right. All right, guys, well, thank you for checking out the episode. Please like, subscribe, and until next time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I'm Douglas Ford. I'm a Florida-based author of horror and dark fiction. Okay. So how did you get in the horror genre? Oh, from the time I was a little kid. Basically, my parents liked to scare me for fun. Okay. And it it turned out to be a pleasant feeling, being scared by my parents who would hide in a hallway and jump out at me in the dark. And it's kind of a feeling I've been chasing ever since by writing my fiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've always wanted to be an author, kind of?
I've always wanted to write. It's always been my jam.
Did you go to school for it or anything like that, or did you just started picking up a pen?
I'm an English major, so I've kind of filled my life with books and words, and I especially like the scary words and the scary adjectives. So I'm into that. Yeah.
How many books do you have out?
Oh, I've lost count. I have, I think, 8 books out under my name.
Okay.
And I'm in many anthologies and magazines with short stories.
Okay.
Most recently, The Trick from Madness Heart Press. I have an amazing publisher, an indie publisher, based in Austin, and they've been really good to me. I'm also published by D&T Publishing, also really good to me.
Wow.
So, yep.
Wow, that is really cool. How was it getting a publishing deal? Like, was it hard?
Yeah, it is hard because, publishers, indie publishers will sometimes take a chance on somebody. That indie publishing tends to be a little more risk-taking.
Okay.
But it's still competitive. Writing is competitive, and horror is... there's a lot of horror writers today.
Right.
So we're kind of it's a crowded field. So it's, you got to work to make yourself stand out.
Who inspired you to be a writer?
Ooh. My first awareness that there was a thing called horror fiction was Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
I was a little kid.
Ooh, that's great.
I read a kid version of the House of the Falling. Let me try that again. The Fall of the House of Usher. And it was the scene of Madeline coming out of the crypt really freaked me out as a kid.
Okay.
And so I realized I kind of want to do that, and then I learned about Stephen King, and I read Stephen King's Cujo at a really young age, probably far more impressionable age than I should have, and that stuck with me, and now I'm doing it as an adult. Mostly traumatizing children everywhere.
I like it that you said Edgar Allan Poe, because most people say, oh, Stephen King, but I like that. That's different.
I like the gothic stuff. I still kind of gravitate towards gothic imagery, even as my books tend to be a little on the weird side, more transgressive side. I still love the gothic stuff. I like the decaying house, and the tarn beneath it, and the idea that it's going to fall into the tarn, and somebody is going to rise from the crypt, and come out and cause all sorts of havoc.
Yeah. So I see that you have a book with us. What is this one?
So I have one of my novellas with Madness Heart Press called Little Lugosi, A Love Story. Okay. Which is, I'm proud to say it's an award winner. It's the 2022 award winner of the Literary Nasty Award.
Okay.
And for transgressive fiction. So this is one of my more transgressive, edgier titles. It's a love story involving a leech.
A leech?
It's kind of a folk horror story because it also involves a pig cult, so a leech and a pig cult. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the leech grows and it becomes sort of integrated into the couple's love life in some twisted ways. And I'm really proud of this one because it is, I believe it truly is a love story. It doesn't necessarily end the way you want a love story to end, or it might, I don't know, it depends on your idea of love. Okay. But, I'm proud of this one.
Okay. What separates you as an author?
I tend not to fall into an easy category.
Okay.
When I'm asked where I fit in, I do have a novel that is a Southern Gothic novel, The Beasts of Visaria County. At the same time, I have a novel that's heavily influenced by occult imagery called The Trick, also from Madness Heart Press. Okay. My short stories run the gamut. Some of them gravitate a little toward the extreme side, others more towards the suggestive kind of quiet horror side. So I don't tend to fit into a category, which is probably my hallmark. So I hope that works for most people.
Okay. Why should people buy your books?
Because they're
awesome. They're awesome. Go ahead and say it. They're awesome.
They were fun to write. and they entertain me writing them. I tend to write my stories not always knowing how it's going to work out. I tend to write my stories not always knowing what the next chapter is going to be. And I entertain myself along the way. And I think if I entertain myself, and I'm pretty discerning, if I entertain myself, I think somebody else might be entertained by it.
Yeah. So where can people buy your books at?
So all my titles can be found on Amazon, as most titles are. I do have some ebooks on that are available from Godless, which is an amazing independent bookseller that you can find online. Godless donates much of their proceeds towards victims of sexual trafficking.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful company that if you don't want to support Amazon, I do have some of my titles through Barnes & Noble and other indie bookstores. You can also reach me at douglasfordwrites.com.
Okay.
You can find me on social media. If you reach out to me, you want a signed copy, I'll make sure you get one.
So let me ask you this question. How do publishers make money off of ebooks? Do you have to sell them for a subscription, or?
With ebooks, you buy them like you would a normal book.
Okay.
And, it's Amazon takes its cut, and the publisher takes its cut, and I get royalties from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really, so you like selling on Amazon?
It's kind of a necessary evil.
Okay.
And because, Amazon, like any big corporation, the bad part of it is it tends to freeze out indie booksellers sometimes, and we want to support the independent bookstores. But Amazon is easily available, so it has this good side that you can find, go on Amazon and have it delivered anywhere. And without Amazon, a lot of us writers would be, it'd be harder to sell our books. So,
yeah, I hear they cater to you guys more than most established bookstores.
Yeah, people who do they're more independent publishing, self-publishing. Amazon can be really good, and I haven't done self-publishing, so I can't speak to that. But I do know people who do it, and they really like it.
Absolutely. So you are involved with Spooky Empire.
Yes, I am.
How did you get involved with Spooky Empire?
So I've been coming to Spooky Empire since I think about 2016 or 2017 as part of the Creators Track.
Okay.
We have a line of panels where writers, filmmakers, podcasters get together and talk about different topics. We have a lot of fun doing it. I'm currently the co-coordinator of the Creators Track, and we put together a great program this year. We talked about everything from Florida horror to quiet horror to psychological horror. To podcasting, and we had a great time this year.
Okay. We would love to be a part about that.
Get you into that.
Yeah, that is something we definitely want to do.
Yeah.
One more time, how do people find you on social media?
At douglasfordwrites.com, you find my website, Douglas Ford Writes on Facebook. Author Douglas Ford on Instagram. You can reach me there, and I will reach back.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being part of the program. Is there anything else you want to add to this interview?
Stay scared, everybody. Stay scared.
Awesome. Stay spooky. We'll see you guys later.